The words found in John chapter 11 verses 50 to 52 are spoken at a tense moment. Jesus had just raised Lazarus from the dead. This miracle caused many people to believe in him. The religious leaders, the chief priests and Pharisees were very worried. They called a meeting of their council, the Sanhedrin. They feared Jesus' growing influence. They thought it might cause trouble with the Roman rulers. Their power and the nation's stability seemed at risk. They were trying to find a solution to what they saw as a growing problem. During this urgent meeting, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, stood up. He offered a very practical, even ruthless suggestion. He told the other leaders, "You know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish." Caiaphas was thinking politically. He believed that sacrificing Jesus, one individual, would prevent a potential Roman crackdown. Such a crackdown could destroy their nation and their way of life. His concern was earthly and immediate. Caiaphas was looking at the situation from a purely human perspective. He saw Jesus as a threat to national security and religious stability. His logic was cold and calculated. The death of one person was a small price to pay. It was better than risking the destruction of the entire Jewish nation by the powerful Roman Empire. He likely did not intend any deeper spiritual meaning by his words. He was a pragmatist, trying to solve a political dilemma. His focus was on preserving their current structure and authority. However, the gospel writer John points out something more profound. John tells us that Caiaphas did not say this of his own accord. Instead, because he was high priest that year, he was actually prophesying. He was speaking a truth far greater than he understood. His politically motivated statement held a divine significance. God was using Caiaphas's words to reveal a part of his own redemptive plan for humanity. This plan was centered on the very person Caiaphas sought to eliminate for the sake of temporary peace. John explains that Caiaphas, in his role as high priest, unknowingly spoke a prophecy. This means God used Caiaphas to declare something true about his plans. It is a fascinating idea that God can speak through anyone, even someone who does not fully grasp the divine message. Caiaphas was focused on saving his nation from Roman anger. He believed Jesus was a political problem needing a quick, albeit harsh, solution. He thought eliminating Jesus would bring peace and maintain the status quo for the Jewish leadership. The concept of prophecy in the Bible often involves God revealing his will. Sometimes this happens through willing prophets who understand their role. Other times, as with Caiaphas, the message comes through an unsuspecting individual. The office of the high priest held historical significance. It was a position uniquely placed within the Jewish religious system. Therefore, John highlights that Caiaphas, being high priest that year, prophesied. His official position in this instance became a conduit for a divine truth, despite his personal motivations or lack of spiritual insight. The prophecy, as John interprets it, was that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. This was the first layer of the divine meaning. Caiaphas thought he was proposing a way to save the nation from earthly destruction. But God's plan was far grander. Jesus' death would indeed be for the nation, but not in the way Caiaphas imagined. It would be a spiritual salvation, an atonement for sins. It was a sacrifice that would address a much deeper problem than Roman occupation, the problem of human separation from God. This divine plan, however, was not limited only to the Jewish nation. John immediately expands on this prophetic utterance in the next verse. Caiaphas's pragmatic solution to a local problem was, in God's hands, the key to a universal plan of redemption. The high priest's words, intended to maintain a fragile political order, pointed towards a spiritual reordering of humanity's relationship with God. The death he advocated for self-preservation was destined to bring life to many, far beyond his limited vision. The prophecy did not end with Jesus dying for the Jewish nation alone. John chapter 11 verse 52 adds a crucial expansion, and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. This is a remarkable statement. It shows that God's plan had a global scope. The death of Jesus was intended to have an impact far beyond the borders of Judea. It was for people from every tribe and tongue, those considered scattered from God's perspective, awaiting this call to unity. The phrase "children of God who are scattered abroad" is significant. In the Old Testament, Israel was seen as God's chosen children. However, the New Testament often broadens this concept. It includes all those, both Jews and Gentiles, who would come to believe in Jesus Christ. These individuals were scattered, separated by geography, culture, and previous beliefs. But through Jesus' sacrifice, they would be brought together. This points to a new kind of family, a spiritual family, united not by bloodline, but by faith in Christ. Jesus' death is presented as the very mechanism for this gathering. His sacrifice was not just an example of love, but an effective act that would create this new unified community. It would break down the barriers that separated people from God and from one another. The cross becomes the central point of reconciliation. It is where humanity's brokenness is addressed, allowing for a new relationship with God, and consequently, new relationships between people who were once estranged. The power of his death would draw these scattered children together. This idea of unity through sacrifice is a powerful theme in Christian theology. One person, Jesus, willingly gives his life. This act of ultimate selflessness is designed to bring about an immense good, the formation of a single, cohesive body of believers. This body would be made up of people from all walks of life, united by their shared faith in him. The division and scattering caused by sin would be overcome by the unifying power of Christ's redemptive work. His death was the necessary step for this great gathering. This ancient prophecy and its fulfillment hold deep meaning for Christians today. The Church, the global community of believers, sees itself as the continuation of this gathering of God's children. It is understood as the people whom Jesus, through his death and resurrection, has brought together from every corner of the world. This belief forms a core part of Christian identity. They are a people called out from their scattered places and united into one spiritual family thanks to what Jesus accomplished. The message of John chapter 11 verses 50 to 52 powerfully resonates because it speaks of a unity that transcends all human-made divisions. In a world often marked by conflict based on nationality, ethnicity, or social status, this passage offers a different vision. It proclaims that in Christ, these distinctions lose their power to divide. Believers are united by a common Lord, a common faith, and a common hope rooted in Jesus' sacrificial death. This spiritual unity is meant to be a defining characteristic of the Christian community, a testament to the power of the gospel. Of course, living out this ideal of unity is an ongoing challenge. The diversity within the global Christian faith is immense, and disagreements can arise. However, the words of Caiaphas, reinterpreted by John, constantly call believers back to the foundational truth. Their oneness is not based on their own efforts or similarities, but on the singular act of Jesus dying for them all. This shared reliance on his grace and sacrifice is the bedrock of their fellowship. It encourages forgiveness, understanding, and a commitment to maintain the unity of the Spirit. In conclusion, Caiaphas's politically motivated statement about one man dying for the people took on a profound divine meaning. What he intended as a solution to a local crisis, God intended as the means of salvation and unification for people worldwide. Jesus' death was not just for one nation, but to gather all of God's scattered children into one family. This message of unity through sacrifice remains a central and cherished belief in Christianity. It reminds believers of the immense love of God and the purpose for which Christ came, to create a unified people, redeemed and brought together by his selfless act.